Here. Vecino? Here. We have a quorum.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments relative to agenda items. Okay. Approval of the minutes of. I understand there's, you wish to speak relative to the streetscape issue. That's not on the agenda, so you can make comment on opportunity for general public comment, which on the agenda follows the end of the agenda that we deal with. So I will call upon you if you wish to speak at the end of that, at the end of the official meeting. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of July the 9th, 2018. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We got 1, 2, 3. Abstention. Okay, report from District Chairman. I'm going to be very brief, but some time ago we had a discussion of public relations, and we constantly are working at it. We've got a pretty good operation that goes forward and moves forward, and we are always working at improving it. And one of the things that I had talked about 6 or 8 months ago was the development of a Commissioners Speaking Bureau that used commissioners to go out into the community and not only just to deal with community groups in terms of NRZs and things of that nature, but also Kiwanis and public relations issues. I had the good fortune to attend several of these things. The last one Nick and I went up to was the retirement home in Bloomfield, Doncaster. And we had a very lively crowd up there, I don't mean lively, in fact, they asked a lot of questions. It was a very good meeting. And I really believe that if we have a Commissioners Speaking Bureau, along with staff, and go to these types of groups, it's a lot easier for us to get our message out, and it's a real personal relationship that develops. And that then the most important thing is the follow-up from a lot of the questions. Nick did the follow-up in terms of what questions were asked, who was asking them, and things of that nature. That gives people a better outreach. Also public media, things of that nature we're working on, and I think it's interesting that how we do pick up, and we pick up a lot of what goes on in that situation. So I felt very strongly about the Speakers Bureau, and I think that if we do it as commissioners, and you're prepared when you go out to these people and to these organizations, and even the schools. I mean, the schools are another place that we could do more than we do now. But that's something that the Community Affairs Committee should establish. And what I'm going to do, we've got some pretty in-depth issues and things that we've been dealing with. We're going to refer it to the Community Affairs Committee. I've talked to Maureen, and we're going to start to deal with this in a broader fashion so that we get sort of a revision to what we've been doing and an expansion of what we're doing. And I'm going to ask that, without objection, that I refer this report to the Committee on Public Community Affairs. So there's no real, I just wanted to give you notice that that's what we're going to do in this issue. So I don't think there's any need for questions. I think those should be answered at the community affairs level. Let them come back to the board and talk about changes or recommendations that will be made beyond what is being submitted in this form here. Did you want to say something, Scott?
Well, only that we are working with the communications group to develop this protocol. We have had on a number of occasions where commissioners have gone in front of their town councils, and we have provided the technical support for the commissioners so that they can be effective in answering any questions that they might have at the town council. This will basically be more of a formal program where we proactively support the commissioners, not on any specific meeting, but in general, so that we can utilize the commissioners at the town council meetings to spread the message.
And for the purpose of the committee and for the commissioners, there's an attached documentation to this that has a list of the many community groups that we've addressed and what we've addressed them on, town councils, NRZs, and you go through it. I mean, we've made several presentations in the communities, and I think that for a year it's pretty extensive, but I think it can be refined, and I think we can expand that list, and I will submit that to the committee also. It was a good report that was done by staff and by the existing communications staff, and I think it will be a really great starting point for the committee to deal with this issue. Report from the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To start off, we did send out, Nick did send out press releases. We received the Platinum Peak Award from NACWA Region 1, representing Region 1 for the East Hartford Wastewater Treatment Facility, which is basically complying for 10 years, consecutive years in a row, meeting 100% of our NEPDES permit testing requirements. The other facilities also received silver awards, which is basically complying with 99.9% of the testing requirements. Only 6 tests out of the year did not pass for those 3 other facilities. So you should have got that in an email from from Nick. In addition, you might have seen the articles. We did send those around as well. We have met, as we've been mentioning, meeting with the town of East Hampton and Portland. Specifically, we met June 28th to talk about, with DPH, to talk about the possibility of DPH funding a water main, a 7-mile water main to serve East Hampton from Portland. We just met on July 17th with Portland and with East Hampton to talk more specifics about how Portland could become a non-member town. The challenge for us to serve East Hampton is we would have to own the infrastructure in Portland to be able to serve East Hampton. As you can imagine, there's a lot to go into that in terms of becoming a non-member town. But physically, in order for us to serve East Hampton, we would have to own the infrastructure. The other option would be that Portland could buy water from us, and they could build a 7-mile water main. They could serve East Hampton. The problem is Portland does not want to be in the water business anymore. They have asked us to come to a water bureau meeting in their town, which is, do they set the date? It is set the date, but it's going to be September. Portland, I did not realize this, but Portland actually sets their rates quarterly, and they are well above $4 per CCF now. They're expecting another 15% increase, and so they're very concerned about the future. They're very concerned about managing and maintaining their system. So they are very interested in the concept. There's a lot that would have to be done, obviously, as you can imagine. We have sent information to DPH. They are talking directly with OPM to see if there's any ability for OPM to fund a grant or a 50% grant for this 7-mile water main. We're waiting to hear back from DPH on that, but we will be attending that meeting in Portland. We're planning to provide a full update to this proposal to the Water Bureau Subcommittee and Water Bureau on the September 12th meeting, so we'll be talking about that with
What size pipe is that and approximate cost?
we're looking at 16?
Yes.
16 inch.
12 or 16, but most likely a 16.
The route would be, the most beneficial route to both towns would be Route 66. It's the longest and most expensive route, but the most possibility for economic development is along Route 66, obviously. So we would do this in stages, and it's about $20 million. The goal would be for the state to pick up 50% of that in a grant, and the details in working out who actually builds it, whether the MDC builds it or whether the towns build it and then turns it over to the MDC, a lot of that would have to be worked out. But the first issue would have to be whether or not Portland wants to become a non-member town, and then we have a lot of issues to do here in terms of,
Feasibility.
right. So there's a lot of work that would have to go into that.
How much pipe?
Denise?
Could you just, for our audience, explain briefly the difference between being a member town and
Sure.
a non-member town?
So for a member town, we obviously have 1,500 miles of water main. And in a member town, any extension of our system, any improvement to our system is shared by all, 102,000 customers. So let's assume we do a $5 million project, the debt service is, pick a number, $2 million. Whatever that cost is for that project, everyone shares it. It's built into, the debt service is built into the water rate for the year. And for a non-member town, the non-member towns, obviously they're not receiving sewer. To be a member town, you have to have sewer and water. So as a non-member town, you're receiving water, so you're not getting charged the special sewer service charge, which is doubling everyone's water rate. But you, on a non-member town, you have to pay 100% of the capital investment of that project. So, for example, we'll pick Glastonbury. In Glastonbury, there's only 5,600 customers in Glastonbury, but there's, pick a number, 30,000 people who live in the town, roughly. So, but only 5,600 people are paying the bill. So that's why they're reluctant. We're actually going to be meeting with the town to talk about, there's some development in the town that would like water. The challenge with that is that you've got a development with maybe 5 or 10 or 15 homes, but it's going to take a 2.5-mile water main just to get to those homes. So the 5,600 customers would have to pay for that. The towns typically do not like to pay for those. We do request and offer, but the towns typically say no, because if the town pays for it, then they have no way to assess the entire town for that debt service, because not everyone's served in the town. Portland has the same exact problem. They have about 6,000 taxpayers, landowners, but only 1,500 of them are using the water system. So when it comes time for a referendum to say, would you like to become a member or a non-member town for the MDC, typically their answer is no, because a lot of the rural communities in Portland, they have great drainage with the sand that they have, so the septic systems aren't a problem. They have water through wells, so there's no problem. So there's no real desire to become a member town from this perspective of the taxpayer who's not receiving those services. So that's the challenge that Portland has, and like I said, we can't really help East Hampton without Portland becoming a non-member town at least, or they can serve East Hampton themselves. Now, we've talked about this before. If there's any town in the state of Connecticut that deserves and should be prioritized as part of the state water plan, it should be East Hampton, Connecticut, because through the manufacturing of bells over the years, the ground is contaminated, and they cannot, their economic development is stifled because they can't get every well, they have to have reverse osmosis on every well system, which is just killing development. They have about 30 homes a year that they're building permits, residential homes, and leases. People are walking away from their leases in the commercial side because they can't comply with the requirement of the well DPH requirements.
And what's really significant, the reverse osmosis issue provides, what, about 150 gallons of water to a person on a daily basis. That's not a lot of water, 150 gallons.
So there is extreme interest from East Hampton for this water main. They've been trying for years to find a solution for their water issues. The DPH offered East Hampton a grant about 5 years ago, a $400,000 matching grant for the design, and they turned it down because they didn't have the construction money. They're getting proposals anywhere from 20 to 35, 40 million dollars to build an infrastructure to serve the town. So I would expect that under this proposal, not only DPH would fund this water main, but DEEP should be, as part of their brownfield site, they have the ability to fund projects like this as well. And they did that in Durham, Connecticut, right? So there is an opportunity. Again, it is the poster child of the clean water, of the state water plan, East Hampton. And our goal is to try and help them if we can.
Any questions? I'm sorry, Ray.
I mean, Scott, if they fund half of the 20 million, now we get through Portland. Portland's buying water at a discount, right?
No,
They pay the regular fee?
they pay the regular fee.
Okay. So now it gets to East Hampton. How many miles of roads do you have in East Hampton? Any idea? I mean, 1,500 miles, say, whatever, just make up a number. What percent of miles of the roads they have water mains going down those streets now?
Yeah.
Probably not that
They don't
many.
have a lot.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So it's going to cost, those people are also on wells, and they definitely need the water, but this project could be years out before it ever.
Correct. But
not gonna be a
if you
quick
look at the state water plan in terms of what it was designed and intended to do, this is it. And if the state is willing to put the money up to bring that water main into East Hampton, that would be an environmental benefit. There will be development. It will take time. But Portland, for example, their water rates are so high, it's unsustainable. They don't have the maintenance staff. They don't have the ability. Their system is as old as ours, and they don't have, they're worried about $15 million in CIP work that they need to
You know how
do.
East Hampton goes, you just go here, there's one road that goes 2 miles straight down.
Right.
So you're going to come back up the other side of it, you're going to need water pumps. I mean, this is going to
Right.
be a very expensive town for
Right.
them to engineer.
Right.
put those
So there's
pipes
an
in.
existing infrastructure in, the goal for this project would to be to bring the water into basically the property line of East Hampton with a pump station. And then obviously, there's no details worked out, right? Just really conceptual. But the goal would be that the town would, over time, would be, the main portions of downtown would be connected, but there's a lot of other sections within the town would have to be connected over a longer period of time. But East Hampton truly is a water quality issue, not so much a development issue. Portland is an affordability issue. They just can't afford to maintain their system anymore.
Further questions?
Yeah. What is our interest financially and socially on doing what they are asking us to do?
So if you remember the state water plan and all the discussions we've had with Bart, the state water plan was to identify the amount of available water in the state of Connecticut, which we've done, and then who needs water on an environmental basis and on an economic basis. And so again, poster child, on an environmental basis, East Hampton is it. So we have plenty of water to sell. Portland is the key here because they're only buying 400,000 gallons a day. They use about 7 to 8. So our goal would be by bringing or taking over Portland, or at least them buying, our goal is for them to buy 100% of our water so that they don't produce any water from their wells anymore. There's a benefit environmentally that DEEP should consider is no longer are you taking groundwater from the Portland area. You're using, our diversion permit allows us to bring water into Portland and sell up to 1.1 million gallons a day. They're only buying 400,000. So we know we've got enough water to give Portland. And if we were to go into East Hampton, there's obviously non-member town related legislative referendums, all that good stuff for both us and them. But then you also have a diversion permit that you have to get from DEEP. So DEEP will be part of this discussion if it ever moves forward.
I saw another hand. Anybody else? Rich?
Yes.
I had a question about ski sundown. At one time, we were trying to.
We're working with them now.
Yeah, we're still working with them, and they are moving forward. I do have it in my update, but we are working with them. There's been a lot of engineering details about actually how to make that connection, and our goal would be to, hopefully they would move forward and have that done for most likely next summer.
Yeah, that would be raw water.
So that would be raw water.
We have to get regulatory approvals from.
No, the diversion permit's already existing.
The 16-inch main from Portland to East Hampton, I believe Portland gets service through Glastonbury, is that correct?
Yes.
Would the pipe through Glastonbury have to get upgraded or enlarged to be able to handle that?
No, we're gonna bring a 16-inch main. What's the point, Sue?
Portland's, you're right, their larger pipes are up near their reservoir area in Portland, but we would have to take from Grove Street, which is near that Tri-Town food area there, the Stop and Shop area, the shopping area. That's where the main would start and go along 66. So we'd have to look at, do we have to do any improvements within Portland itself to make sure we have enough water over at that connection?
Yeah, I guess my concern would be that if indeed you have to get through Glastonbury, through Portland to get to this intersection for the new main, who's paying for those improvements? And obviously, as a non-member town who gets stuck with any improvements in town, we would be concerned about that.
Right. So any improvements that occurred because of this project to serve Portland or East Hampton would be borne by Portland and East Hampton.
Further questions? Oh, Scott, why don't you finish up
I'm
here?
sorry. Okay. So, got a lot here. In addition to everything we've talked about with East Hampton, I did attend my board meeting in Boston, July 23rd and 25th, for our NACWA board meeting representing Region 1, and they did ask me to sit on a regional panel, and we talked about, it's like a broken record, all of our members in the U.S. are talking about the very same thing that we just got done talking about at the BPW meeting, which is affordability, integrated planning, and workforce development. And we did talk a lot about affordability as it relates to whether or not we go to a sewer user charge from ad valorem and how that impacts Hartford specifically, and East Hartford. But after the panel discussion, we spent about 2 hours talking about nothing other than workforce development. And so in talking about, as most of you know, we have two programs. We had the internship program, We had 35 interns for 9 weeks, 8 member towns, 2 non-member towns. The interns raised $1,900 for the annual bake sale. The important part of the college intern program is to provide exposure to college students looking for our succession, looking for kids to consider water and wastewater as a profession, as a career. And so, as we said, we had a very nice lunch last week, and we did have Commissioner Adel, LeBeau, Sweezy, Taylor, and Hoffman that attended. I apologize for missing Commissioner LeBeau. I didn't see him in the audience. But it was a very nice event. And believe it or not, as I said in the presentation, we're actually seeing college kids apply for entry-level unionized jobs. So college kids are applying, 4-year degree, 2-year degree college kids are applying for our POIT wastewater and water treatment program. The next program, which is, as you know, with the support of the commissioners from Bloomfield, we created the Learn to Earn program, which is really to educate the high school student that there's a possible career here at the MDC or any other water utility across the nation in terms of operating our water and wastewater treatment plants. And we talked about that as well in Boston. And again, for 2 hours, the biggest challenge that this industry has, the average age of an operator in this industry is 56 years old. And we are not the only one. New Haven, our sister agency in New Haven, they lost 3 operators, drinking water treatment operators, and they can't find anyone to replace them. So we've been extremely proactive. This will be our 3rd year in our Learn to Earn program. And in my presentation, I explained and give a presentation on this topic. We also are getting national recognition. Dave Kosminski, who is actually one of the teachers that teaches the program that we've implemented, Commissioner Taylor's help, in the Bloomfield school system, just presented in Minnesota at a national convention. And we do have a video. I'd like to show it. This video was shown at that convention. And we are becoming recognized nationally for our Learn to Earn program. So with that, Nick, if you could just bear us 3 minutes to watch this video.
The MDC, the Metropolitan District Commission, is a water wastewater municipality that serves approximately 400,000 people. We have about 473 employees here. As predicted, we could have about 150 employees exiting the workforce within 3 years. The Learn and Earn program is a 4-week program where we introduce students selected from our member towns to all the vast career opportunities that we have within our organization. After completing the 4 weeks of the program, these students are excited and energized and have something to look forward to. There's opportunities out there they never knew existed.
I was interested because I like water, working with water, and we do water treatment at our school. We learn about the water cycle, and I thought I can go and learn more about it.
We've been going around from facility to facility. Specifically at Reservoir 6, we were in the laboratory. We took some test samples, and then we went and used the pH scale and a turbidity meter to look at the turbidity of the water and determine whether the water was acidic or it was a base.
We went to Barkhamsted, and one of the first things that we did there was we went into the forest. They're basically saying that, where there are many trees, the water is filtered better. They tell us about the wildlife there and all the birds and just everything that you could see there. And I felt more in my comfort zone when I was there because since I'm in bioscience, we're always outside in the woods looking for deer, planting trees and all that. So that was really fun. We also went in the tunnel where we saw the tunnel of pipes, where the pipes run and you get waters, and it was really cold because of the water temperature. But it was still really fun to think that, someone actually built this and it's been there for years. The boat ride was really cool.
We grabbed samples of water and we tested the turbidity, we tested the chlorine, We tested the pH.
Me and my friend Shanila, we did a filter. We worked on our filter, and ours had the lowest turbidity rate, so that means it was the best. We got a challenge point, and that was good. We had layer of sand, rock, and gravel, and then we had charcoal, and then we put stuffing, I think, around it.
My filter, I would say it didn't go so well because the turbidity was over like 200, so that's terrible. You want to keep it below 0.5. That's the state regulation, 0.5. Hanging with the MDC staff, they're pretty cool, you know. I really enjoyed being here, and I'm actually looking for a job opportunity later on in life to work here. I think I would work at West Hartford Filters because I like that place the most because they have the sand filters and all the filtration systems. The process of how the water has to go through the sand beds to get all the little tiny microscopic particles out of it, that's what interests me the most.
We have utilities across the country that cannot find operators to run their water or wastewater systems. We have been lucky enough and been proactive enough to develop programs built within the community high school systems, and we're looking to have the local regional schools build that succession planning for us. The MDC partnered with the Water and People program from Portland, Connecticut. Dave Kaminsky had developed a curriculum in the Portland school system to actually allow the kids to get their small systems drinking water licenses through DPH. That program was a huge success over the years in Portland, and we asked Dave to help us migrate that program into our Bloomfield school system. There is a great opportunity here for kids within our region to get their education in the water and wastewater industry.
At first, I was a little nervous because I didn't know what I was coming into. The people in MDC are really nice. They're respectful, they're understanding, they're interesting. When they talk about the water cycle and about the wastewater, you can see they're passionate. It makes you want to come here and learn more.
Just like how you tell your little kid, oh, you're going to grow up and be a doctor. No one says, oh, you're going to grow up and treat water for humanity. No one says that. So this opportunity really is a really good program to help us high school kids figure out what we're going to do. Like myself, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I think this is something that I'm really considering.
My main goal in my career that I wanted to go into was I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a child advocate, but when you're working with water, you're helping everyone, so that's good. I wanted to do something that made me happy, and it seems like whenever people talk to us, they really enjoy their job, and so I think this would be a good fit for me, and I wanted to help the environment as well, just because that's very important. Like, it's where we live, that's where we're going to live. And I think more people, especially my age, should probably research more jobs in this industry because they're never going away, as Dave was saying, and we need more people in the industry.
So the kids this year, again, the third year program, the kids were so, the first year we had a lot of kids and not all of them were probably as interested as what the program was intended to do, which was to really look for kids that have and want a career in this field. This group was outstanding. The Bloomfield kids, the AI Prince kids, you cannot take the DPH license until you're a senior in high school, but some of these kids are juniors and sophomores, and they can't wait to be able to take the test. So it's really starting to steamroll and get the excitement from the communities to want to be part of this program. So we're very happy about that, and again, it was a very successful program, and we do thank Commissioner Taylor and the board for supporting that. I've said this to the kids every year. This is about a $50,000 bill, and we do not want to be in a position like Regional is right now or other utilities across the country. And believe it or not, Maine, the state law says that you cannot take the test for a wastewater license or a drinking water license unless you've worked in the field for a year. So it's almost impossible to get your license because our program's complete opposite. We're letting them take the test, and then they work in the field for a year, and then they get their certification. So it is a great program, and it's becoming nationally recognized. So kudos to the commission for supporting it.
Did you say the program is a $50,000 price tag
Correct.
on an annual basis?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And we've got, I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff because I've been talking a lot. So I am going to mention, we do have John Hilltop Securities. Did you want them to give a little update on the GEO bond?
As you are aware, we priced the $120 million GEO bond on July 18th. So what we have here is representatives from Hilltop Securities that will kind of give you a debrief on the pricing. I'm going to introduce Adam Kraft from Hilltop.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As John said, my name is Adam Cray. I'm a director with Hilltop Securities. My colleagues Susan Karen and Matthew Blaze are here with me tonight. I will emphasize the brief on the debrief on your bond sale. But this bond sale, this was your first long-term bonds that have been sold since November of 2016. And November of 2016 probably makes some of you shudder a little bit, like it does me, because in 2016, which was the last time we sold long-term bonds, that was the beginning of the public knowing about Hartford's financial woes, and the words bankruptcy appeared in the newspaper at least once a week. And that noise surrounding your bond sale in November of 2016, even though the MDC itself, nothing had changed internally, you were still a very strong credit, that noise of your largest ad valorem payer having trouble, of course, made investors nervous. So this was the first time we were back in the market looking at bonds going out for 20 years. You'd done 2 note sales, but those are very short term, a lot less risk when bonds are due, 12 months or less. So this bond sale, really the MDC looked at it as a way to reintroduce the MDC back into the market. Because the MDC, the member communities, the Connecticut legislature, everyone has banded together over the last 18 months to put a lot of protections in place so that there wasn't so much of an outside influence on your financings. So this was, we looked at this a little bit more globally than we normally look at a financing. And I just want to talk about a couple of really important points because it really shows what you do and then the success that we had with this bond sale. The first thing is, of course, the MDC's rating is very important, your credit rating from Moody's and from S&P. And I think as many of you know, you've been on negative watch since 2016. The MDC has been downgraded, and that negative watch basically says that the expectation is there's more than a 50% chance that you'll be downgraded again. So instead of doing the more traditional conference calls with each rating agency, the MDC put forth a huge effort and invited Moody's and invited S&P separately and spent a day with each rating agency here. They were very happy to come to the MDC. Mr. Zinzarella hosted a 90-minute meeting where we talked about finances and all the management aspects of the MDC. And then Sue Negrelli and Tom Tyler hosted tours of the Hartford wastewater treatment plant, which really allowed the rating agencies to see the amazing sophistication of not just your staff, but also of your facilities. So that effort was well worth it because both rating agencies removed the negative outlook and said that the MDC's rating is now stable. So for the first time since 2016, the rating agencies signaled investors that the MDC is not on a downward slide. It has stabilized. Now, again, they've been very clear. A lot of that is the outside noise of Hartford and the woes of the state. It's not that the MDC has been doing anything wrong, but the environment in which you're operating. So that was the first piece of good news at the beginning of this transaction, that stable outlook. Then the MDC put forth a very important investor outreach and marketing effort. This included an online investor presentation that was narrated by Mr. Zinzarella. And the reason that we didn't want to just put the normal marketing materials out there but wanted to have this investor presentation was because that allowed us to frame the Hartford story and make sure that folks saw the timeline. Really, we wanted to show all the progress that had been made. So that online investor presentation that was narrated was very important. We also made ourselves available for one-on-one calls with investors. So, a JP Morgan Wealth Management or a Citi Investment Management, they could request a one-on-one call with the underwriters, with Mr. Zinzarella. And the great thing about that is that 3 large investment managers asked for one-on-one calls. 2 of them have never invested in the MDC before and invested in the MDC this time. Citi Investment Management put in an order for $54 million, and Liberty Mutual Insurance Company put in an order for $38 million. They were not investors in the MDC before, but after reading all the materials and talking on those one-on-one calls, they weren't just investors, they were very big investors. So again, something that was well worth the effort. And then, of course, we spent the 2 days before the pricing out in the market doing what we call price discovery, talking to investors about where the price point is for the MDC bonds. In the end, I'm very happy to say that the MDC received $584.5 million in orders for our $120 million bond issue. So obviously, a sort of a warm reception back into the market. Because of all those orders, when we only had $120 million to sell, but we got almost $585 million in orders, Goldman Sachs, who was the senior manager, worked with Hilltop's desk, worked with our folks, and basically we were able to lower the interest rate on almost all 20 maturities by up to 5 basis points. So at the end of the day, the true interest cost, the district's borrowing cost on 20-year bonds was 3.31%. Really quickly, the last 2 points is we can't help but compare this to the last bond issue in November of 2016. In November of 2016, we always compare bond issues to a benchmark because as the market changes, just saying the rate doesn't really mean anything. Just like, now an 8% mortgage on your home would be awful, whereas in 1979 you'd be jumping for joy. So you have to look at a benchmark so that the rate makes sense. So comparing the MDC to the benchmark, which is the AAA MMD, that's just the benchmark for tax-exempt securities. In November of 2016, your 10-year bond was 120 basis points. That was the spread. So if the benchmark was 2, your bond was 3.2%. The 15-year benchmark was 125. That was your spread from the benchmark. And in the 18-year spot, it was 140 basis points. Your bonds that closed on July 31st, the 10-year was 43 basis points. It was 120 for that year in November of 2016, and it was all the way down to 43. The 15-year spread was 125 in November of 16. It was 45 basis points this time. And then the 18-year spot was 140 basis points back in November of 2016, and it was only 48 basis points this time. So you traded like a much stronger, much higher credit, which these spreads that I just told you about from July were much closer to pre-2016. That's very close to the way the MDC used to trade. And the last thing I wanted to let you know, so the culmination of this, reintroducing yourself to the credit market and showing people the strength of the MDC, and now that you have the support of the legislature behind you with Public Act 17-1 and all of the additional tools that were given to you to have in your toolbox to address the potential problems of any member municipality, even though the spotlight's on Hartford now, it will help you with any member municipality. Basically, because of the way your bonds traded this time compared to November 2016, if your bonds had traded at the spreads of November 2016, your debt service on this bond issue would have been $8.6 million more. So you basically are paying $8.6 million less in principal and interest payments over the life of these bonds because of that decrease in how much closer you spread to the index than if we had had the same bond sale in the same situation as in November. So I hope that, I know you've had a lot of meetings, a lot of outreach, and I hope that the success of this sale, gives you comfort that all that work was certainly worth it for your constituents since now in your budget that much less has to go toward debt service. Certainly, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I hope that provides you with a brief overview of how well you did on this sale.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Good news. Everybody's happy.
Yeah. I just have 2 more items. I'll be very quick. As you remember, the discussions about the Hartford landfill and the deep groundwater discharge fee, we agreed with DEEP to take split samples on July 9th. Those samples were taken. We finally received The sample results on the 20th of July. And in terms of the constituents that were in the sample, it's very close to what we had results from in the past. The significant difference is really the amount of water that's coming from the landfill. If you remember, I represented the deep letter, the Commissioner Klee's letter to the chairman identified about 30,000 gallons a day, and that is incorrect. On the day that we took this test, it was 90,000 gallons. The averages, as we've expected, was in the 85,000 gallons a day. So the results are clear. The DMR reports, as I mentioned in the last meeting, clearly identify that the flows are double to almost triple what the state has said in their letter to the chairman. So this is about a substance that does not belong in our sewer system. It's called groundwater. We have a fee associated with the groundwater, and we're asking to be paid for it. So I don't want to get into more details on that. Oh, one more point. We have mentioned numerous times, and Deep has argued this point, but we pay the state of Connecticut about $950,000 a year for the nitrogen credit removal program for all 4 of our wastewater treatment plants. The majority of it's paid for at the Hartford treatment plant, about $560,000 a year. Of the water that the state is discharging to our system, which we did not approve, of that $950,000, about $150,000 is associated with this nitrogen bill that we get, that we have to pay them. So
On a yearly basis.
on a yearly basis. So our point is taken again and again that not only are they not paying us, but now we have to pay them for, of the $950,000, $150,000 of it is associated with their nitrogen that they're just charging to us illegally.
Your contribution.
So
Paying them? No.
What?
What's
We
that?
have been paying.
Oh, yes, we have, because we got a NOV that said, if you don't pay, we're gonna fine you. So,
We're in total compliance,
yes, we are paying our bill.
fortunately.
And I didn't, we got talking so much about the East Hampton thing, but I did want to make a comment, and you did also, should have received copies from Nick on the tunnel boring machine and the articles Michaela Porter did from the Hartford Current, which Nick and Susan did a great job working with her, and I believe it was a great article. So we've been trying to schedule some form, as you know, of some form of a groundbreaking, so to speak, with the machine, and it's been extremely difficult because of the timing with the contractor, and we pushed the date off at least 10 times in the last 3 months. And even the week that it was occurring last week, Wednesday, we couldn't nail down the actual day, the actual minute. So it was very difficult to actually have some formal ceremony. So we basically just tried to say to the commissioners, go down if you'd like between these time frames. And some commissioners did go down, and but the tunnel boring machine is in the hole, and the first piece, right? And then the cutter head is going in Wednesday. Wednesday, we're going to shoot for Wednesday to get the cutter head. Now that could be Thursday, could be Friday, but the point is, once that equipment is in the hole, then they have to actually assemble everything and put it all together down there. So there's a lot more work to be done before they actually start drilling. We're still on for the end of August, Sue? For
They have to send, the gantry's there for the first 3 heavy pieces, then they'll put the rest of the equipment down, they've got to assemble it down there. They're saying Labor Day, right
Okay.
after Labor Day, but I'm,
Yeah.
I'm thinking a few weeks after that.
So it's 18 months, after they actually turn the power on and they start drilling, roughly 18 months, and they'll be in West Hartford.
Long trip, but
Long trip.
worthwhile.
But anyways, it's a great feat, and again, another project that is nationally recognized.
Scott, when will you establish the protocols on access and things of that nature?
Yes, so the chairman has asked me that very question, And we are working with the contractors, so we have our own liability issues in terms of providing access for the public, including commissioners and town officials. But we also have to work with the safety program from the contractor itself. It's the contractor's builder's risk insurance that we have to worry about too. So we're working with the safety officers on the project as we speak to develop that protocol, and we'll report back to you next month.
And that also deals with how close we can be on the surface to that activity. Further, any questions of the Chief Executive Officer? Go ahead, Ray.
I'd just like to thank Sue. I had a group from West Hartford that had called me about 2 months ago, and we set up a tour, what was it, last Wednesday? Tuesday, one day last week. And, I mean, they gave us about a half hour of videos, and then we went out to the site on the outside of the fence, and everybody was very impressed. And I want to thank her. She did a great job. And Nick was there also. Thank Nick, the two of them. And there was one other fella, what's his name? The guy.
Brian McCarthy.
Brian McCarthy. He was excellent, too. So the three of them really did and the people from West Hartford and one person from Bloomfield really appreciated it. So thank you.
Alan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to get back, Scott, if I could, to the landfill, just to give a sense of the amount of leakage. If we were to successfully require DEEP to truck out this amount of leakage, how many trucks would that be on average daily?
So most vehicles are going to carry about 7,500 to 10,000 gallons. So if you look at their average is 85,000 gallons divided by 7,500, about anywhere from 10 to 15, depending on, the position DEEP has had is it's impossible for them to truck that amount. But if you remember, this was a facility with the road structure that had 200 garbage trucks coming through it every day. So, there is a roadway, there is a path where they could access the property with 15 trucks a day.
But they also require tanks and things of that nature to load, the unload. No.
But this estimate is in fact what is being produced at that site.
Correct.
Every day. And we probably would not really want all of that to go through our system.
Well, so the point is that if it goes through our system, we have a fee, and we talked about this in the past, that in a sense it penalizes, it's incentivizing people to not put groundwater in our system. And that's why the rate is what it is, because remember, we received an $800,000 fine from the state and from EPA for stormwater and groundwater being in our system. So the goal of the fee is to really discourage people from discharging this to our system.
Further questions? Rich?
You probably can't calculate this, but it was a sole source pipe, and 95,000 gallons were leaving that location. By the time it got to the treatment plant, you couldn't guarantee that 95,000 gallons got to the treatment.
Correct. Right. And so that's our, exactly, and if you look at it this way, we have companies and entities that are bringing this same type of product, and it's trucked to the facility. And at the facility, they pay 13 cents a gallon. But remember, when they truck that in a truck, and if they get in an accident or they spill across the highways of the region, it's not our liability, it's the trucker's liability. But yet, in this case, they're discharging it to our pipe, and once it goes into our pipe, it's our liability. So we're not getting paid. And so part of that 13 cents provides us with the liability. And for example, we've already identified there's about a $300,000 improvement necessary because of the corrosion that's been occurring from the discharge from the landfill on the pipes directly outside the footprint of the landfill, which is only served to the landfill. So,
Pipe has overflows in
We also know we
Yeah,
have
and
52 overflows.
and every overflow that occurs from that 85,000 or 90,000 gallons, some way, somehow, doesn't reach the plant during a major storm, and it's going somewhere else.
That would
going to the
also
river.
have to be part of any solution that was negotiated with DEEP, some liability issues of being held harmless, so. I was-
If I could, Mr. Chairman, for the second time. We had, as a board, determined that we were going to place a deadline, transmit that deadline to DEP. And my question is simply this: have we had any response to that deadline?
No. The only communication we have had at a staff level, our Director of Operations, Chris Levesque, has actually talked and written a letter directly to the staff person at DEEP, and specifically to talk about the ability to, one, to calibrate their meters to make sure that the amount of water that's flowing through that meter is actually correct, and also in any one of our groundwater discharge customers, 10 of them, which includes the landfill, we install our own meter and an RF, just like we install on the water customers, so that we can actually record the flow without having to physically go into the chamber. And so they have, Chris Levesque met with their staff out at the landfill last Wednesday, and we haven't heard back, but we're hopeful that they'll allow us to put the RF on the meter. The meter is compatible with our RF equipment, so we won't need to replace the meter. It has been calibrated, so we're satisfied that the flow is actually 90,000 gallons. But we are hopeful that they'll allow us to put the RF. Again, our ordinances allow and require us to have access to our equipment, and in our position, they don't have a say in us putting the RF on. So we're hopeful that they allow us to do that.
Is staff prepared to shut them down if we don't hear from them? And does this board think that we should give them another 15-day notice just before we do shut them down?
If the board directs us to shut them down, we will shut them
We
down.
already did direct you to shut them down.
Right, on the first, right. So if, I believe we're having a meeting correct me if I'm wrong, are we going to have a meeting before the?
We'll have to have a special
Yeah,
meeting.
so whatever the direction of the board is, we can shut them down if that's the decision of the board.
Should we send another notice out 15 days before the 1st?
I think we'll have to do it before 15 days. We're going to have a discussion in the next week with them and explain to them that we're serious.
I thought that first
Didn't we say we're serious? Told that in the letter.
Well, again,
The vote was 100% of the commission.
I understand, but we still have the right to, we should give them final notice that there's been no change on the board.
Maybe we should do another motion now and let them know that we're serious and send it to them? Or?
I think it's adequate what we have. I think they realize.
I will draft a letter that comports with what the
Comports with it,
sentiment
right.
of this board is, just so that you know that any one of those major rainstorms that you've seen in the last month, you can be assured that the overflow that you were referencing, Commissioner, did not make it to the plant. And we file reports with DEEP that shows that these interceptors are overflowing and going into the Connecticut River. So pretty much every hard rainstorm that you saw, you could be pretty much assured that that went right into the Connecticut River.
Or the streets of Hartford, or a basement.
Right, we don't know where they go. Right.
Question is, Scott, we do have the ability to shut that off with a valve or some kind of shut off, right? It's already in place though, right? So it's not going to be an excuse.
No, the issue of shutting off the sewer is a physical one, and we can easily do that at a moment's notice.
If you shut off the sewer for 90,000 gallons, where does that water go?
Good question. It's going to go into the Connecticut River.
Do we know how it gets there?
Well, I would tell you this, is that.
Well, it's
you
been
think-
there
Think
already.
about this, think about this. If that 85 or 90,000 gallons a day goes into the Connecticut River, is that better than it going into the community of Hartford? Because that's where it goes now. Think about it. I mean, if we shut them down, that water goes into the Connecticut River.
That's where the natural flow is, into the river.
Right, because it's based on groundwater.
Groundwater,
The largest portion, we call it Area B, which is the large landfill itself. That's where the majority of that water is coming from. But right now, that water, the potential of going into basements and going into the Connecticut River and going into the streets of Hartford is real. It happens. There's no other place for it to go. So if we close it, if we shut it down, it would back up and go into the Connecticut River through groundwater. So the answer is, what's worse, the Connecticut River or the community of Hartford?
Then it would be a decision,
It's up to the state.
no, then it would be EPA's,
Right.
EPA obviously would step in, I would assume, when it's in a river that moves from one state to another. Buddy?
Scott, the only other option, I mean, besides sending this to the plant through our system or trucking it to our plant or somebody
regular
else's
pipe.
plant, is for them to build a treatment facility right there at the site.
Right.
Or-
Like
and-
Pratt Whitney.
Or a pipe, a singular pipe for that purpose along the river to our location.
Well, but they could build their own treatment plant.
Pratt Whitney has an industrial.
Pratt Whitney's had that plant for
specifically
years,
to address
yeah.
Their own industrial waste. They have their own permit, they own their own NEPTES permit, just like us, an industrial permit. So they have the ability to do that. We've talked about this in the past. Those discussions occurred in the 90s, and they decided and realized that it was too expensive, and it was cheaper for them to put it into our system.
But right now,
As long as they're not paying for it, it's cheaper.
yeah,
It's
but
cheaper
Pratt
than
and Whitney
putting-
right now is discharging into our system in East Hartford where we do have capacity and it's not an overflow
Yeah,
situation.
so they have, Pratt and Whitney has the same situation on groundwater and on stormwater, believe it or not, that the landfill has. So we're working with them directly. We actually started charging them the 13 cents on July 1st.
Right.
And they have committed to finding ways to get the stormwater and groundwater out of our system. I've actually, in our meeting with Goodwin College, explained to Goodwin College that there's a lot of work being done by the Goodwin College in terms of stormwater development, and I suggested that they meet with Pratt and Whitney to see if they can partner with them to address their stormwater together.
Further discussion? Rich?
One last question. I had asked at the last meeting, and then I followed up about the other 3 or 4 locations that DEEP has closed landfills. And I was told you had FOI the information.
Correct.
Have we got a results yet or no?
We do not have the results. We have done the FOI, though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions? Could we proceed with the agenda? Item 9, I'm sorry, item 8. Bart, you don't have anything, do you?
Just have one very brief thing. The board will remember that you asked us to address the issue of benches and at various locations. We have done so. We have done the regulations. They have ordered the benches. They have ordered the nameplates. The benches have arrived. The nameplates are here. They are doing the concrete foundations for them. Those 2 benches that you approved will be installed in August, and we will give the commissioners notification of when they will be installed and the ceremonies that go around it. But that has been done.
But that is at the cost of the individuals that are.
It is correct.
Right. Consistent with the contract and the agreement we have with them. Item 9, refer to Bureau of Public Works regarding petition for the sewer service on Fairfield Avenue in Newington. Recommended action, receive the report and adopt a resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? It's been moved and seconded. Rich?
Referring it to BPW.
I'm sorry. No, I thought we were going to Water Bureau.
The next one's Water Bureau.
Water Bureau, okay. So we're going to take action on it and then refer it to Water Bureau. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 10, I'm sorry. No, I think I acted on. Not, yeah. Item 10, referral to the Water Bureau regarding petition for water service, A, Foster Road, South Windsor. And without objection, the addition of B, International Drive, and Seymour Road in East Granby.
Second.
There's a motion. The recommended action, receive the report and adopt a resolution. Is there discussion? If not, that's it. We're going to adopt it and then refer it to the Water Bureau. So that's what we're doing. That's the action. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 11, Board of Finance consideration and potential action regarding 2018 operating budget transfer. Recommended action, receive the report and adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Buddy?
Mr. Chairman, this resolution passed unanimously at the Board of Finance.
For the $200,000 transfer? This is
Yeah,
$200,000.
yeah, with the
Transfer
resolution to adopt the
$200,000.
transfer, yes.
Okay, is there discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Before we close, Bud, would you like to come up and you had a presentation to the board or to the district?
Thank you. What I have this evening is an award that we received, the MDC received from the Construction Institute of the University of Hartford. With the full disclosure, I am a member of the board of directors of the Construction Institute and have been for years. This is the first year that I won't be serving on the board. However, they made a selection to receive these awards this year. And this is a special industry recognition award for the Metropolitan District Commission. And I'd like to present this to our chairman. I do have comments from them. And one of the reasons they selected it was working with Scott and with Mike Jefferson on our diversity program and our local business enterprise program, that the Construction Institute was very appreciative of all the work that we've done for the industry here in Greater Hartford. And that's really the reason for recognizing us. So, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to the board for receiving it. So.
Put this on Scott's mail.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 12, opportunity for general public comment. Just come up to the microphone, state your name, and it's 3 minutes to, do you have something in writing? Is this it? Okay. Okay. Okay.
To the chairman and to the board, we have a problem here at, we're from the Upper Albany Avenue Merchants Association, and my name is Maurice Bryan, and I have a business on the avenue. And the Route 44 DOT Safety Improvement Program is currently in its construction phase, and there are no plans for the improvement of a replacement of existing water main or associate service laterals. We have some questions regarding that. Could you please address? There isn't a plan for improvement?
You're talking about the water service.
Yes.
And the improvement on the waterscape. Scott, we've dealt with this. I think it probably makes sense to address it at this point, because we've been through this more than once.
Well, I would, I may get these dates wrong, and I apologize if I do, but as you may know, we were contacted by Marilyn Reese, and I believe it was November of 2016. I might get that wrong, it might have been 15. And the question at the same time was, why is the MDC not replacing the water main as part of the state's DOT streetscape project? We had told Marilyn Reese at that meeting the reason why was because the bids were due in December of that same year. So less than a month away, the state of Connecticut designed the project, and there was no intention at the beginning of the state's project to do any subterranean improvements, and therefore the water, the sewer, the gas, the electric, nothing, that wasn't part of the project. It was never intended by the state, because as you can imagine, if the state is going to disturb the ground to such that it has to relocate the utilities, the state has to pay for it. So the state chose to do a streetscape project, and as you know, there's a concrete road base, and the concrete road base, the only thing they're doing was basically changing curb lines and those kinds of things. They were not removing the concrete and the subsurface, as we would call restructuring, reconstructing the roadway. So our life cycle of our water main was such that our asset management program indicated that that water main did not need to be replaced. And again, the state was not digging up the road to the point where you would, the state planned this project. The state did not anticipate or plan to replace any utilities in the roadway. And so, again, Marilyn Reese came to us in November. The bids were due from the state to the state for this project in December. So the discussion about stopping the state's project and redesigning the project, and then the state having to come up with the monies to replace and relocate the water mains was not an option. So that's the reason why the water main was never intended to be part of the project, because the state didn't make it part of the project.
Right now, in Albany Avenue, we have some very serious water main problems. On the
Microphone.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Right now, on Albany Avenue, with the DOT project going on, we have some very serious water issue with the laterals and the main over on Albany Avenue. And Mr. Chairman, we would like you to either come out or to address the concerns that the residents and the business have. We have one merchant on the avenue that he had such bad problems that I'm so sorry we didn't get to bring his pipe, but that was we made a photocopy of.
That was a lateral.
Laterals are at the home or the business's expense, isn't it?
So our ordinances require the ownership of the sewer lateral and the water main lateral from the street is owned by the property owner.
Not by the
MDC. So any time that a resident or a business has a problem with their service, whether it's the sewer or water service, on private property, the cost of that is borne by the property owner.
Yes, but the part from the road to the property owner's line, that needs to be addressed. That is the MDC problem.
We agree with you.
And so.
Well, I agree with you that we take over the responsibility of that, but in terms of.
Why don't we do this? We'll come out and we'll take a look at it in the next day or so. I'll come out with Scott.
And more likely, on this Thursday, we will be having the Upper Albany Design Committee meeting. And we would be so grateful. It starts at 10?
In the morning?
at 10 in the morning at the Handel Center.
Okay, we'll be there.
And West, oh my, that would be so good, sir.
That'd be so good. So we could address it personally.
that's
And
perfect.
you could answer the questions, and that
Right.
will.
So you, Mr. Chairman, will be there?
I'll be there with the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
please.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hold you to that.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, there are not many people, they're civil about it. Thank you very much. Let's see, I lost my script here. Okay, commissioners, are there any further public comments? If not, commissioner questions and comments? Buddy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Earlier this evening, Scott spoke about the East Hartford Water Pollution Control Facility and its record of 10 years in a row being perfect. And it's not just excellent, it's basically perfect. There's no test failed for 10 years, and it's received this platinum award for that long. But I'd like to, just mention that we were talking about how we fund these major capital projects and how we might have the funding in non-member towns becomes problematic, and in trying to get water to folks and so forth. But that particular project was the subject of a referendum passed by all 8 member towns, I think in 1989, that provided $80 million to the MDC in funding through bond issues. And the vast majority of that was spent at the East Hartford plant to upgrade the plant that had been built in the mid-50s or somewhere around there. I think over $60 million of the $80 million was spent there. And it improved the plant, upgraded all the treatment parts of the plant, changed the discharge from the Hockenham River to the Connecticut River. And ever since that work has been finished, that plant has been working towards receiving 10 years in a row of excellence. And so it's just when the district member towns provide a capital improvement, like with the Clean Water Project and other projects that have happened over the years, together within the district, I think we've done some really important things. The building of the tunnel is going to change the nature of how we manage water pollution in all of Greater Hartford at some point. And just want to mention that I think when member towns get together, I know there seems to be a lot of reasons for towns not to be a member, particularly the clean water charge, as you mentioned. But that clean water charge and however we pay for it in the future will produce, obviously what we were always looking for, and what the state of Connecticut, I think, ultimately is looking for, is a better environment for all the people that live here. And certainly the success of the East Hartford Water Treatment Pollution Control Facility is now legend. After 10 years, I don't think any other plant in the United States has received 10 years in a row of perfect service. So, but that was directly as a result of all the member towns contributing through a referendum to put that project together. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Scott, for getting that out and letting people know.
Any further comments? If not, the proper motion is in order. Without objection, stand adjourned.